As we saw in the previous video, positivism has made an important contribution to the development of modern science by emphasizing that knowledge is gained through experience, which meant developing methods and practices that allowed us to scientifically seek knowledge about what we do not yet know. The ideals of positivism has been established in the general discourse on science. For example, when we argue that political decisions should be rooted in science, it is generally understood as the need to base public decisions on knowledge obtained through systematic and logical reasoning, usually by collecting empirical data. What is thus called into question is when politicians, bureaucrats, and or others base their decisions on personal opinion and conviction, which is not claimed to be able to contribute to the common good in the same way as a scientific reasoning would. This says something about the success of a positivist view of science. It has become an almost self-evident notion that science should have a special place in society. This is also true in schools and especially within higher education. If research-based teaching and learning is interpreted through the ideals of positivism, three things can be highlighted. First, teaching becomes taking in and teaching materials that is produced through scientific methods and practices. Thus, what teachers and professors in higher education teach should not be rooted in, for example, their personal morals, political views, or religious beliefs. No, only scientific knowledge should be presented to students. Secondly, teaching becomes getting students to adopt a scientific approach themselves. This means getting them to value scientific knowledge and prioritize it in their future careers, and perhaps also in their future private lives. To achieve this change in attitude, the teacher should not only argue the case for scientific reasoning, they should also teach students the methods and practices that underpin modern science. Students should also become scientists, at least at a basic level. Thus, in addition to providing them with knowledge and skills that are essential for the future, it is hoped that this will instill in them an appreciation of science. Finally, positivism contributes to higher education by emphasizing the need of evaluating your own and others' teaching in a systematic way. In other words, the same scientific principles used in research are applied when looking at teaching. This has given rise to the scholarship of teaching and learning, which includes collecting empirical data to understand how students learn best, thus providing educators with the knowledge they need to be more effective in their teaching. A positivist viewpoint has thus contributed to research-based teaching and learning by prioritizing scientific knowledge, teaching students to become mini researchers themselves, and making teaching itself a focus of scientific research. If I may make a generalization, this is a perspective that is particularly prevalent in natural sciences and technology disciplines. The ideals of positivism seem to blend well with the form of research-based teaching and learning found in natural science and technology. With a positivist view of science gaining such a strong foothold in the public consciousness, it would not be surprising if research-based teaching and learning then was reduced to only positivist view of science. But this is not the case, as positivism as a school of thought has also been criticized. Positivism is criticized for its excessive emphasis on empirical data and verifiable knowledge that it creates, and it creates an overly narrow view of what we are studying. Critics of positivism explain that much of what we deal with in higher education is too complex to be reduced to data. The personal experience, the importance of community, cultural differences, and historical conditions are also essential to understand what we teach. Nor can positivism fully capture the ethical and political implications of what we are teaching. Accordingly, other forms of knowledge should also be considered in teaching and learning in higher education. This option does not necessarily always conflict with the ideals of positivism, but it offers a different perspective that also affects how we understand research-based teaching and learning, and also how we understand knowledge. We turn to this in the next video.